everyone. I am Ekaterina Dengina, and I'm from National Institute for Material Science in Japan. And today I would like to present to you our machine learning approach for prediction of nanodefects and magnetic anisotropy in iron-platinum HAMR media. So nowadays, in hard disk drives, the main technology that is used is perpendicular magnetic recording technology. For this purpose, the material should be a nanogranular one, and the bits of information, the bits of information are introduced as magnetized cells in one direction, and they are consisted of a group of several grains. However, as now the needs of areal density storage are growing, the limits of perpendicular magnetic recording are reached, and now they're not enough. So why this is so? Because in order to increase the areal density of storage, we need to decrease the size of the magnetized cell, which means to decrease the size of each grain. However, in order to decrease it, we need to decrease the volume of the grain, and it means that here there is a limit where the magnetocrystalline anisotropy energy becomes comparable to a thermal energy, and this is where the grain itself and the media becomes thermally unstable. And in a certain limit, the grain can become a superparamagnetic. So this is where we can go to a new technology, which is called heat-assisted magnetic recording technology. In this technology, first of all, the region of magnetic material is heated. In a certain temperature, the information will be recorded where the magnetization of this region is decreased. And after that, the region of the material will be cooled again. Nowadays, this technology is one of the most prospective for the future, and iron-platinum nanogranular films with L10 ordering are the most prospective for it. A lot of requirements should be met for such a material, and that is why nowadays a lot of tasks for optimization of these materials are carried out, and our work is one step in this direction. So here you can see the transmission electron microscopy images of iron-platinum nanogranular films. The thickness of the main layer of our films was about 7 nanometers, and the same was the mean grain size. Mainly, the easy access direction is 001 for these films. However, some defects are presented. For example, there are some grains that are rather small, which can be disordered or which can have a small value of magnetic anisotropy constant. Also, there can be some twinning grains, which mean that it divided into two parts, into two twins, with a different direction of crystallographic texture. And also there are some grains with in-plane misalignment. As all these defects affect the performance of magnetic recording media, all of them should be taken into account. So previously, the finite element model was constructed using these transmission electron microscopy images, and it reproduces the main microstructural features of the films. In particular, the grain size, the shape of the grains, and also the presence of the defects. And here you can see the short pipeline of processing of TEM images. First of all, the segmentation of top view TEM images was done with segmentation and binarization, and also processing of some contours. And after that, the description of cross-sectional TEM images was produced by Bezier curves. And after that, volumes and meshes were constructed using GMesh library and Qubit program package. And here on the right side of the page, you can see the final model. Here you can see the comparison between the real transmission electron microscopy images and the constructed finite element model. Not only defects affect the performance of the recording media, but also some magnetic anisotropy parameters. And their influence may be seen on the hysteresis loops. For example, corrosivity is dependent on the value of magnetic anisotropy constant. Standard deviation of magnetic anisotropy constant, as well as inclination of easy axis from out of plane direction, deteriorate the squareness of the loop. Volume fraction of disordered grains with zero magnetic anisotropy constant produces such a kink near 0 Tesla field. And here on the right side of the slide, you can see the direct influence of some defects, some examples of how they influence on the hysteresis loops, the presence of such defects. It means that by investigating a form of hysteresis loop, we can determine some important parameters of iron platinum granular fields. And this is what we have done in our work. For this purpose, we collected the data set based on micromagnetic simulations. There were 760 simulations. For this, in each simulation, we will write a set of parameters that is shown here in these ranges. After that, we described each hysteresis loop at a set of points, a values of magnetization at each step of magnetic field. And we used this set of points as a features for our data set in machine learning. And after that, we carried out a machine learning process. For that, we compared two models, gradient boosting regression and neural network. Using these models and the form of the hysteresis loop, we can predict our 6 parameters. After that, we can carry out experimental validation of our machine learning model. For that, we need an experimental demagnetization curve. From it, we extract the points, the same as we did for the whole data set. We provide these points to machine learning model, and it predicts these 6 parameters. After that, we can use these 6 parameters to include them in our micromagnetic model to simulate the hysteresis loop in micromagnetic model and compare the form of the loop with the experimental curve. And I will show you the results a bit later. So in our work, we compared 2 main machine learning models. It was a gradient boosting regression and neural network. We compared them by mean absolute error, one of the metrics that is represented here. For these 2 models, we used the parameters that are shown on the slide. And we got the result that in general, neural network gives us smaller mean absolute errors, and that is why we decided to use neural network further. And here you can see the results of predictions of neural network for 6 parameters. Here on the plots, the x-axis represents the actual values of the parameter, and the y-axis represents the predicted value of the parameter. The closer all points to the diagonal lines, the better are the predictions. We divided our data set into two parts. The first was a train set. It was used just to train our model. And the second one was a test data set. It is shown here in the red dots. It was used to test the model, to test its performance. In general, neural network gives us high accuracy of predictions. You can see all errors here. For example, the metric of mean absolute error. And after that, we carried out an experimental validation of our machine learning model on one of the samples that is shown here. So using its experimental curve, which is shown here in black dots, we predicted 6 parameters. These were the values of these parameters. You can see that the predicted values of some defects were in good agreement with the parameters that were obtained by X-ray synchrotron diffraction. And also, after that, we used these predicted parameters to include them in our micromagnetic model and to simulate them demagnetization curve. You can see it here in a red line. It was in a compliance with an experimental curve that means that our experimental validation was successful. So in conclusion, this study demonstrates the applicability of machine learning approach to evaluate the parameters in real iron platinum films through rapid machine learning assisted magnetometry based characterization. And it means that in general, it can be implemented in nanostructural optimization of iron platinum HAMR media towards industrial goal of higher storage density. There are some further steps that we would like to implement in our work. First of all, we can include, previously we used only out-of-plane demagnetization curves for our data set, and now we can include in-plane demagnetization curves. And also we can understand the influence of variation of the grain size and their morphology, and also we can see the effect of the temperature on prediction results. So this is all. Thank you very much for your attention. Maybe there are any questions.
Thank you, Ekaterina. So you have one question in the chat from Michael. So since the neural network was trained based on your FePt system, do you think it could be generalized to other similar films, or do you think it would require additional training?
Yes, it definitely requires some additional procedures. First of all, because to train our model, we use the results of simulated data set. It means that we used our micromagnetic model. And this micromagnetic model was constructed for iron platinum films. So we tried to reproduce exactly the microstructure of iron platinum granular films. That is why it is better if we would like to use some similar films. First of all, it is better to improve the microstructural model and create a new data set and to train the neural network on this new data set.
Very interesting. Thank you for the great talk and for answering my question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ekaterina.